Welcome to the I Love Coaching podcast, the show where we help coaches, entrepreneurs, and leaders build businesses that create massive impact. I'm Adam Roach, alongside my incredible co-host,
Jess Webber, and we're here today to bring you the best strategies, mindset shifts, and real-life success stories to help you level up in your coaching journey.
Whether you're launching your coaching business, scaling to 6 or 7 figures, or just looking for inspiration to push through, this podcast is your go-to resource.
We're bringing you expert insights, real talk, and actionable items every single episode. So if you're ready to take your coaching game to the next level,
then let's dive on in. Yes, we're back. We are back together. The band is back together, and I am excited to be here. And I'm going to tell you, you've gone solo on me the last couple of weeks, and I'm starting to feel like, what was that guy's name? The free solo guy that climbed, the big old rock, and then now climbed that building all by. I'm feeling like that's kind of like you, Jess. You're out there free soloing this stuff, and you're doing an amazing job. Thank you for doing that, by the way.
Well, I appreciate it. As I said in every episode, it wasn't that I was trying to, do it without you. It just happened to be that our schedules didn't align. And there was a lot that has been going on in our world and our brains. And it was like, I still wanted to make sure that we shared something with our audience. So,
well, you did such a good job that in your future, I can definitely see, and this could probably start tomorrow, having your own podcast because you're that good. So thank you for going free solo and showing in our listeners that Jess Webber is damn good. And I want to build on the podcast that you did last week. Mm-hmm. I loved your conversation around success to significance, and I want to take it a little bit further. I want to go from significance to authentic significance. I want to go into authentic North Star. I want to go into authenticness, period. Because here's what we know is, gosh, Jess, you and I have been in quite a few rooms since the last time we were on a podcast together with many successful people. And success can be defined as their ability to be keynotes or their ability to make 6, 7, 8, 9 figures to having success looked at from the outside, but maybe on the inside, they're not as successful as we think they are. And that's what I want to talk about today is how do we go from success to significance and then significance being aligned with them authentically.
I love this conversation. I'm so excited. Did you have a place you wanted to start with that?
Sure. Let me go internally here for a second and just share. I've been in this space before. I've chased success versus significance, and I've chased success inauthentically. Just my head used to be as beautiful with hair like yours is. And then I went rogue and went into an inauthentic space and I pulled it all out. No, I'm joking. For those that know us and follow us, you know that I'm bald. And that had nothing to do with it. That was clearly DNA. Though at the end of the day, I can honestly say, Jess, that when you're inauthentic, you don't attract. When you're inauthentic, you can get at the front of the room and you can share with people what you believe is value, what you believe is just making you look good. Though at the end of the day, you're probably not attracting people. And I'll give a very simple example of this. When I was leading real estate offices, I would do meetings. I would do office meetings. And I would get up there and I would entertain. I would think I'd bring what I considered was valuable. And we'd have good filled rooms. And I will never forget. I had other people come shadow me. And I've just as of recently just started putting 2 and 2 together here. I'd have other people come shadow me because I was considered successful. And they would always say, Adam, why don't you have Gotta minutes? And my ego would answer that by saying, because I've trained them not to bother. Just this is what I've learned though, is I didn't have Gotta minutes because the people who I thought I had trained were not aligned with me because they probably thought I was inauthentic. They probably thought when I was at the front of the room, being this showman, being this loud, being this character, that I was not someone they wanted to come lean into because I was inauthentic. And that's me being completely honest. And I know what that feels like to go into the front of the room, to attempt to share value, what I thought was value, and then go sit in my chair and say, I'm so glad that's over because that was exhausting.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting point. One of the books that I was listening to while I was traversing the frozen tundra of Tennessee last week was a smaller release for Mr. John Maxwell, the charismatic leader, last year. And yet it was a great one that I'm like, I need to get a physical copy and reread it because audio doesn't sit as well with me. But what I was hearing you say is there is a difference between being a charismatic leader and a character.
Yes.
And I think that is what we see time and time again when we're in these big spaces, and what you and I both have experienced personally in different settings of there's a performative nature that comes across as a character persona when the alignment is missing or there's a level of inauthenticity that is showing up to when we're attempting to be a charismatic leader, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's a really important thing to consider what you're showing up for and who you're showing up for and why you're showing up for them, and having that ability to filter, is this something that's in alignment with who I am now and what I am, working towards, that significance and the aligned significance, or not? Because you could have the biggest opportunity in the world, but if you have to put on your character suit
Yeah.
instead of your charisma suit,
Yeah.
there's going to be a problem, and
There
people
is.
are going to notice.
I'm going to get so into this podcast. I'm going to stand it up, Jess. I'm going to stand up for this one. Yes. Because at the end of the day, gosh, this is what's so important. Because if you're not being authentically yourself, and maybe you don't know who you even are, right? Maybe you don't know. Maybe you don't know that your North Star, you don't know what it should be. You don't know what your calling is. You don't know. That's okay. It's really okay. Though I'm going to tell you, the faster you can gain clarity on doing something for others, the faster you can step into your authentic self, your true soul, which loves, right? It loves, it's peace, it's all those types of things without having to be a character. In our intensive, this was the neat part for me with our intensive, was we got to have a general session, and the general session was so powerful. The blueprint, you guys, our listeners, our watchers, the blueprint, which is version 8, is truly a masterpiece manuscript. It is gorgeous. It is, and I say gorgeous, it is truly just the pathway to significance. Though you've got to identify this authentic self, and we saw some of that in general session, Jess. Boy, did we see that in the VIP session. These individuals let down their guard. They let their hair down and said, I'm lost. I need help. I need direction. And we know, we say this all the time, transformation begins with humility. And humility is sharing your mess. The moment you can start to share your mess with someone or a group, just authenticness starts to show up.
Well, and you were talking about having some sort of North Star or something bigger than yourself. And I know we've talked about this before. I mean, many episodes, many times. Last week I was talking about the language from the Tony Robbins and Hormozy podcast about having a moonshot moment. And I turned around, and in the last week, somebody asked me, well, how do you know what your moonshot is? And I'm like, you don't have to know it right off the bat. Like, there doesn't have to be a light switch that flips that suddenly you're like, that's it. Because I think when we're struggling to put food on the table or make ends meet or show up in an aligned space with who we are and the activities we're being asked to do in the world, it is hard to say, yes, I know exactly what my moonshot is. But I think that you can take baby steps along the way. And so thinking back to our blueprint, like you were referencing in this intensive, is starting with who you are and what you've been through, and thinking, what is something that I've learned or a group of people that I've been a part of that could use what I've learned in a way that's beneficial to them without a dollar attached to it, but just what is something that I could do to make an impact in their lives. And I think that's a great place to start. So, if you were a single parent, then connecting with others there. If you were, an entrepreneur or whatever the case may be, you can start somewhere and pick something that is passionate, invoking for you, because you're going to start to find the authenticity when the passion's also there.
Yeah. And here's the interesting part with this, and I'm going to speak from experience. And this is just my experience, okay? I'm not going to project onto any of the listeners right now that I want to share my experience. When I made my moonshot all about money, it didn't have the ability to have longevity, right? There was no sustainability there because we achieved numbers. We achieved dollar amount numbers. Now, but let's just talk about this from the standpoint of impact, right? I was telling you before this call that you are going to have, and you already are going to have, an impact on this world that you can't envision yet, Miss Jess Webber. And I can see it, and maybe you can't see it. And that's what we get to do here when we're running these intensives. And just like we have a challenge today, we get to see the greatness in other people without using, again, very aspirational words. We get to see the greatness in people, and that we get to then bring that down and say, okay, fine, let's look at where you are right now. Let's look at where you were. Let's look at what conditioning is causing you to have these thoughts. We're all conditioned to think just that money needs to be the driver, but that's not really the case, and it's not sustainable.
You know, it's funny you said, for those of you that are not watching the video recording of this, he had his hand up by his head and then he pulled it down kind of out and through his gut. And my head immediately thought about the fact that most people in our world lead with their heads, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a look good, be right situation, I have all the answers situation, I think I need this situation. And we're always trying to pull them down into the heart and then find something that aligns so their gut's happy. So it's really funny that you did that motion, and it was like this trigger to me mentally of, we have to get out of our own way. Our head is not the lead measure. It's actually our gut.
Yeah.
And when you find something that you're passionate about, when you find something that is authentically aligned with you and something that's bigger than yourself, your whole body is just going to feel it and love it and own it. Yes. In a completely different way than the, ooh, I get to crunch numbers. Ooh, I can write a bigger check of just the head. And so for anybody that's listening that doesn't, if you've listened to the previous podcast or the Hermosi podcast about moonshots, this is not a call to action of you're a failure until you have a moonshot.
Yeah.
But it is a call to action to start thinking about what makes you happy and feels right.
Mm-hmm. That's right. I'm looking at the blueprint right now, Jess, and I'm looking at the character Kite and the page of identity to impact. And the character Kite literally breaks down. I'm going to read what it says here. You're not one-dimensional. You have gifts, you have quirks, you have strengths, and you have struggles. And all of these come and work together to make the human that you are, right? It makes the human that you are, and it makes you relatable. And that's what we're getting at here, is this North Star point is, gosh, it is. I just came back from GoBundance, and I love this. We call it the tribe. And when I first got into it, it used to be called, the tagline was, a tribe of healthy, wealthy men who chose to lead epic lives. Okay. So guess what that was all about? Us, me, right? It was all, and it was good at the time. I'll never forget. It was such a season in my life where I was so success oriented that one of the guys at the front of the room, now inside of Keller Williams back in the day, Mo Anderson had this standard that you are not allowed to cuss, right? There was no cussing, Jess. Mo Anderson led the example of, if you were going to cuss, you had to put money in a jar. I think Gary Keller was probably one of the most biggest donors of that, right? And so I got in front of GoBundance, and I got into the very first room, and this guy got in the front, and he said, I'm going to tell you all something. And there was maybe 30, 40 of us in the room. This was 2014. And he said, this is going to be a room where you don't have to apologize for being a badass. And I was like, oh, this is incredible. This is exactly what I want. I want a place where I don't have to apologize for being amazing. Mm-hmm. And looking back on that, while that thought isn't wrong, that was all me, right? It was all pointed at me being the star figure in my story. Where, Jess, what I want to get across here in this podcast is it's okay to continue to grow yourself. Though when it comes to the North Star, it's less about you and more about others.
Well, personal development, which is a massive industry, right? Or self-development, it's not actually about you. And that's what I think so many people struggle with is personal development books. If you read them, listen to them, consume them as podcasts or whatever, it's an awareness of you, but how you relate to others, how you help others, how you impact others, how you show up in a world of others.
Right.
And that's where I feel like we often struggle when we are trying to build something off our own reputation, our own back, our own efforts, is we do make it about ourselves, but that's not the intention. We teach it, whether it's from our challenge, our intensive, our blueprint, whatever, what's in it for them? What's the payoff for the people in the world around you? Right. And I think that at the end of the day, the North Star has to be defined by a payoff that's not about you or for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very true. Because in our equation, we go from payoff into math. And the math, you all, that's where you get to make money. So the more that you can help other people achieve the payoff that you can help them get based on your past experiences, the more will actually come back to you. And again, I think we've heard that for how many years from like Jim Rohn, the more people that you can impact, the more money will come your way, or whatever the language is, right? That's exactly what this is about. And I felt called to do this podcast today simply because of that, because we have seen so many others, and I have lived through that example, that the more we make it about themselves, the faster we sink into the quicksand. And that's what I want our listeners to hear is it's okay for you to have success that you desire. It's 100% okay. It's okay for you to go continue to develop yourself. And in the same breath, when you can learn to go from success to significance, and then significance to authentic significance, man, you will see your math just skyrocket.
Exactly right. I love this. This has been on my heart and my head for a long time, and I am glad that we're having this conversation.
That's because we're free soloing together now, Jess, which is the fun part, where we're climbing this building together. By the way, did you watch that dude climb that building? Alex, what's his last name? Starts with an H. Did you see that?
No.
You got to go watch it. Do you know what I'm talking about, the movie or the documentary Free Solo?
Yeah, I do know what you're talking about. I'm not a documentary person by nature, so I haven't seen it. But,
whether you like documentaries or not, this guy scaled a building. I don't remember how tall it was, like the 10th tallest building in the world without any ropes.
So I live in St. Louis, so we have the gateway to the, west, which is the St. Louis Arch, which is 630 feet tall, and it's just this triangular metal shape arch, right? We had a guy who scaled it and then wanted to parachute off of it, and it was a big deal here. So my head keeps going to that guy, which maybe they're cousins, maybe,
So let's see here. This was HONNOLD.
Okay.
No, whatever. It scales 101 floor skyscraper. 101 floors.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. Here it is. 1,667 feet straight up.
Yeah, that's 1,000 feet taller than the arch, which is 630 feet. And here's the thing, though, is they did scale it themselves, but did they get down by themselves?
Right. Yeah. So this guy rappelled down from the top and then took the elevator down.
Okay.
I would not come down the building. Anyway, we're digressing here. And at the end of the day, this is something that I felt called to share based on your past solo podcasts and just really wanting the listeners to hear and feel the difference between success to significant, or success to significance, and significance to authentic significance. Going even further and going deeper in understanding what you're called to build through your own significance.
I love it.
Yeah, cool. Anything else you want to land this plane with?
I mean, as always, if you are somebody who is in the coaching space or looking to step into the coaching space and you feel like you are called to build something, we would love to invite you to our challenge. And you can find out the dates of the next one and get all the details at ilovecoachingco.com/challenge.
That's right. Okay. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for listening. See you. Bye.
Bye.